9 out of 10 people who switch their breakfast to lose belly fat see zero change after 30 days. Not because they chose the wrong food, because they never fixed the actual structure keeping the fat locked in place. By the end of this video, you will understand the cellular flaw that makes belly fat nearly impossible to burn, and you will have a 5-minute breakfast recipe that targets it directly. The twist? The science behind it won a Nobel Prize in 1931, and almost nobody in the fat loss world is talking about the real reason it works. Quick question before we get into it. How many times have you changed your breakfast trying to lose belly fat and the belly fat just stayed? Hold that number in your head. It matters more than you think. The 1931 discovery, nobody connects to fat loss. Here is something the fitness industry has been quietly ignoring for decades. In 1931, a German biochemist named Otto Warburg won the Nobel Prize in Physiology for proving something that should have changed everything we know about metabolism. He demonstrated that when a cell begins to malfunction, the breakdown starts at the membrane, the wall surrounding the cell. Not inside it, not in the DNA. At the wall. The wall is where metabolism either lives or dies. Years later, another German scientist, Dr. Johanna Budwig, built directly on Warburg's work and identified what was actually damaging those walls in modern humans. It was the type of fat people were eating, specifically industrially processed fats, the kind baked into crackers, fried into fast food, pressed into seed oils, were being absorbed into cell membranes and making them stiff, unresponsive, and functionally broken. Now here is why this matters for the fat sitting on your belly right now. Every single cell in your body has a membrane made of fat, and that membrane is rebuilt on average from the fats you have eaten over the last 6 years. 6 years of vegetable oil, processed snacks, fried food, and your cells are literally wearing that history on their walls. Start replacing what goes in, and the walls start changing. That is where this breakfast begins. Before anything else this week, check the ingredient label on your cooking oil. If it lists sunflower, corn, soybean, or canola oil, that is one source of membrane-damaging fat you can remove today. 6 years of the wrong fat built into your cells. Picture this. Every morning for the past 6 years, someone sits down to what looks like a reasonable breakfast. Maybe toast with margarine, a bowl of cereal, some orange juice. Reasonable. Familiar. Except the margarine was pressed from industrial seed oils. The cereal was baked in them. The granola bar they grabbed on the way out the door. Same story. None of those choices felt dramatic, but the body kept a perfect record. Cell membranes turn over continuously. As old fatty acids are cleared out, new ones from your diet get incorporated into the membrane structure. Your cells are built from what you repeatedly eat, not what you ate last Tuesday. A 2018 review published in the journal Progress in Lipid Research confirmed that dietary fatty acid composition directly alters membrane fluidity and receptor sensitivity. When membranes are built from rigid, oxidized industrial fats, they lose the flexibility required to respond to hormonal signals. Insulin, the hormone that determines whether your body burns food for energy or stores it as fat, needs to dock onto a receptor on that membrane wall. If the wall is stiff and damaged, the signal does not get through cleanly. The result is a condition most people know by name, but few understand at the structural level: insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, left unaddressed, is the single most reliable predictor of stubborn belly fat that refuses to move regardless of what you eat for breakfast. Think of the next 6 years as a membrane renovation project. Every meal is either adding flexible, functional material to your cell walls or reinforcing the damage. This breakfast is the first delivery of the right material. Why your pancreas is making the problem worse. Why does your body keep storing fat even when you are eating less? That question has a cellular answer, and it starts with a door that will not open. When insulin tries to deliver its signal to a cell, essentially telling it to absorb blood sugar and use it for energy. It has to physically bind to a receptor on the cell membrane. Think of insulin as a delivery driver arriving at your front door. If the door is warped, swollen, stuck in its frame, the driver knocks harder, rings the bell twice, waits longer, gets nowhere. Your pancreas responds to undelivered insulin the same way a dispatch center responds to failed deliveries. It sends more drivers, more insulin into the bloodstream, then more again. More insulin in your blood means one thing: more fat storage. A landmark study published in Diabetes Care in 2012 found that elevated fasting insulin levels, even within the so-called normal range, were strongly associated with greater abdominal fat accumulation over time, independent of total calorie intake. Independent, meaning the calories were not the primary driver, the hormonal signaling environment was. This is the cycle most fat loss advice never addresses. You reduce calories, your body still secretes excess insulin because the membrane problem remains unsolved and the fat stays exactly where it is. Ask your doctor to include fasting insulin, not just fasting glucose, in your next blood panel. It is a far earlier and more sensitive signal of this cycle than blood sugar alone. Flaxseed oil and cottage cheese, the membrane repair team. Here is a fact that changes how you think about this breakfast entirely. Flaxseed oil on its own, taken by the spoonful, delivers very little of its omega-3 content to the places that need it most. Most of it passes through the bloodstream in a form the body cannot efficiently convert or deploy to cell membranes. That is not a flaw in flaxseed oil. It is a delivery problem, and it has a specific solution. Cottage cheese is the delivery system the oil was missing. Dr. Budwig's research identified that cottage cheese contains two sulfur-bearing amino acids, methionine and cysteine, that form a chemical bond with the unsaturated fatty acids in flaxseed oil when the two are blended together. That bond makes the omega-3s water-soluble, which means the body can now transport them directly into cell membranes. Without the cottage cheese, the fats stay largely inaccessible. With it, they become the raw material for membrane repair. The ratio matters: 6 tablespoons of organic cottage cheese to 3 tablespoons of flaxseed oil, a 2-to-1 ratio. Beyond the membrane work, cottage cheese delivers approximately 14 grams of slow-digesting casein protein per serving, which research published in the British Journal of Nutrition in 2015 found reduces total caloric intake at the next meal by an average of 12%. 2 ingredients, 2 jobs, 1 bowl. This week, buy organic cottage cheese and cold-pressed organic flaxseed oil from the refrigerated section. Always refrigerated, always in a dark bottle. You now know why most fat loss breakfasts never touch the actual problem. And what makes this one structurally different at the cellular level? If this is the kind of science-backed breakdown you want more of, hit subscribe and leave a comment below with the word cell. It tells me you want to go deeper on this. Coming up, the one preparation mistake that kills the entire effect, why ground flaxseed is not optional, and the 3 add-ons that make this breakfast do even more work while you go about your day. The preparation mistake that wastes everything. A woman in her late 40s, let's call her Sarah, had read about the flaxseed oil and cottage cheese combination, bought both ingredients, and stirred them together with a spoon every morning for 3 weeks. She noticed nothing. No change in energy, no shift in how her clothes fit, no difference in bloating. She assumed the science was overstated. She was not using the wrong ingredients. She was using the wrong tool. Stirring with a spoon does not create the sulfur bond between the cottage cheese proteins and the flaxseed oil. It simply swirls 2 separate substances around a bowl. The oil floats. The cottage cheese stays lumpy. And none of the chemistry that makes this breakfast work actually happens. Skip the blender, and you might as well skip the oil entirely. The fix is an immersion blender, small, handheld, inexpensive. Add the cottage cheese to a tall, narrow bowl first. Pour the flaxseed oil on top. and blend for approximately 30 seconds. The result should look like soft, smooth whipped cream. No visible oil separation, no lumps. That texture is your confirmation that the bond has formed. If you do not own an immersion blender, a small personal blender works too. Make the investment once. It takes 30 seconds to use, and it is the difference between a breakfast that repairs cell walls and one that does not. Ground flaxseed versus whole. A 70% difference. Whole flax seeds have a hard outer shell that the human digestive tract cannot reliably break down. Run them through your system intact, and most of them exit the same way they entered. Hull uncracked, lignins unreleased, fat loss benefit uncollected. Contrast that with freshly ground flaxseed. Once the shell is broken, the lignins inside become bioavailable. And lignins are the reason ground flaxseed is the third non-negotiable ingredient in this breakfast. Here is the specific cycle they interrupt. Belly fat produces estrogen. Elevated estrogen tells the body to preserve and accumulate more belly fat. That belly fat produces more estrogen. The loop sustains itself, which is why this type of fat is described as self-perpetuating in the endocrinology literature. Belly fat feeds itself unless something breaks the loop. Lignins act as selective estrogen receptor modulators. They bind to the enzyme aromatase, which is responsible for converting androgens into estrogen inside fat cells, and partially block it. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that flaxseed supplementation measurably reduced circulating estrogen metabolites in postmenopausal women over 12 weeks. A University of Toronto analysis confirmed that ground flaxseed delivers approximately 3 times the lignin content of whole seeds consumed in the same quantity. 3 times. Buy whole flax seeds and a small dedicated coffee grinder. Grind 2 to 3 tablespoons fresh each morning. The lignins begin oxidizing within hours of grinding, so batch grinding for the week gives you a fraction of the potency. The 3 add-ons that make this breakfast do more work. Imagine your breakfast already running as a well-built engine. Then someone hands you 3 legal performance upgrades. None of them are required. All of them meaningfully extend the fat loss effect of the base recipe. First, 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk sprinkled on top. Psyllium is a soluble fiber that turns into a thick gel the moment it contacts water in your stomach. That gel lines the stomach wall before your next meal arrives, forcing incoming food to pass through it slowly. Slow passage means a blunted blood sugar rise, which means lower insulin secretion, which means less fat storage signal going out to your cells. A 2018 meta-analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, covering over 1,000 participants, found that psyllium supplementation significantly reduced postprandial blood glucose and insulin response. 1 tablespoon, on top, done. Second, a handful of fresh berries, raspberries, blueberries, or blackberries. The dark pigment comes from anthocyanins, plant compounds shown in a 2017 study published in Nutrients to shift white adipose tissue toward behavior more closely resembling brown adipose tissue, which generates heat by burning calories. Berries don't just sit in your bowl. They change how your fat behaves. Third, 1 tablespoon of organic nut butter. A Purdue University study found that participants who added peanut butter to their morning meal reported significantly lower hunger for up to 12 hours afterward. Nut butter triggers the release of peptide YY, your body's primary fullness hormone, and slows gastric emptying at both breakfast and lunch. Add these 3 in order of ease. Psyllium first this week, berries second, nut butter third. Stack them as your routine stabilizes. This is not a breakfast. It is a stack. Step back and look at what is sitting in that bowl. Flaxseed oil and cottage cheese blended into a smooth base, actively delivering omega-3 fatty acids to damaged cell membranes. The same membranes that have been blocking insulin signals and trapping fat in place for years. freshly ground flaxseed releasing lignans that interrupt the estrogen belly fat feedback loop. Psyllium husk forming a gel that blunts blood sugar spikes at the next meal. Anthocyanin-rich berries nudging stored fat toward a calorie-burning state. Nut butter suppressing appetite hormones for most of the day. Every ingredient has a documented job. None of them are decorative. What makes this breakfast unusual is not any single ingredient, it is the layering. Most breakfasts address one variable, protein or fiber or calories. This one addresses the cell membrane, the insulin signaling pathway, the estrogen fat cycle, blood sugar regulation, and satiety hormones simultaneously. 5 mechanisms, 1 bowl, 5 minutes. 2 practical notes before you start. First, this breakfast does not store well. Make it fresh each morning because the blended mixture begins to oxidize within hours. Second, if you are currently taking blood thinners or any anticoagulant medication, speak with your doctor before adding flaxseed to your routine. The cell walls you build over the next 6 years are being decided at your next meal. This breakfast is a reasonable place to start that renovation. Make the base recipe, cottage cheese, flaxseed oil, ground flaxseed, 3 mornings this week. Note how your hunger and energy hold between breakfast and lunch. That feedback is your body reporting back on a change already underway. Here is the spine of everything we covered. Damaged cell membranes, built from years of industrial fats, block insulin signals and lock belly fat in place. Flaxseed oil and cottage cheese, blended, not stirred. Supply the omega-3s your membranes need to start working again. Ground flaxseed interrupts the estrogen fat cycle that keeps visceral fat self-perpetuating. And the 3 add-ons extend that fat loss effect across the rest of your day. If you want to keep building on this, my next video walks through the 10 breakfast foods that actively train your body to burn belly fat, what each one does inside your body, and how to use them without accidentally canceling out the benefits. Click to watch it next. Not professional advice. Consult a qualified expert as needed.